Within Adventureland is a wonder world of nature's own design. Her animal creatures, her fabulous plan of life.
Welcome to Adventureland, a thrilling journey to exotic and enchanting realms of exploration, adventure, and discovery, inspired in part by Walt Disney's True Life Adventure series of films. What's the matter, Donald? You look lost. Well, while we're trying to figure out your map, let's let the Imagineers take us on a safari through Adventureland.
Adventureland came out of the True Life Adventures.
Walt had a tremendous series in the 50s called the True Life Adventures, and they won many Academy Awards. And it was a natural to develop a place that took people to every corner of exotica around the world.
Harper Goff was the designer of the Jungle Cruise, and I think the original idea was to go in some kind of what we'd call four-wheel drive vehicle today. But that became so impractical. Fortunately, the African Queen movie came out, and that became an inspiration, put people in boats.
And so Harper was enamored with this film and said, hey, Walt, why don't we do something to do with cruising on a jungle boat?
When the Jungle Cruise opened, it had that type of a boat in a world that was right out of Walt's True Life Adventures, and it was very realistic.
You know, originally he wanted to put live animals there. So the idea was you would go off on an adventure in this jungle boat and see live animals on the shore. But he finally met with some animal experts who said, you know, the problem with putting live animals there is it's not always going to work out for you. And Walt, being the showman that he was, he wanted these things to be staged perfectly. And so they decided to create mechanical animals that they could stage exactly the way he wanted them staged.
Now, as the years went by, they looked for ways in which to make it more entertaining and more fun to go back over and over again, because Disneyland is all about riding things over and over again.
So Mark Davis went down to the park and he rode the Jungle Cruise attraction, and he said, you know, one thing you guys are missing from this is humor, is comedy. There's a lot of opportunity.
Mark knew how to draw in such a way that you could absolutely understand the storytelling by just looking at a drawing.
When Mark told Walt that he thought there should be more humor in the park, well, I think Mark did some really brilliant things. They're really the images that you remember more than anything out of the Jungle Cruise.
Come to the Tiki Room. Hurry to the Tiki Room.
Well, the Enchanted Tiki Room originally was a restaurant.
Walt had envisioned this idea of a special room in the back of that restaurant where you could go in and start to have a wonderful kind of Polynesian meal. And midway through the dinner, all of a sudden, everything in the room would come to life.
So they had been playing with the development of a bird, a parrot.
Well, it was the introduction of what we now call audio animatronics, but this is the first time anyone had seen birds and flowers and tiki gods all talk and sing in perfect synchronization with the music and story.
The idea of the birds talking and singing got so interesting to Walt that he said, you know what, I don't think this should be just a restaurant, this ought to be a show. And so the Tiki Room took off as a development.
We have 4 macaws who act as master of ceremonies in the Tiki Bird Room at Disneyland. And they actually keep the show rolling. And along with them are other birds who sing and things, and flowers that sing. And then the tiki images, you know, the carved tiki poles and things with these tiki gods, they sing and they drum, and we have quite a show.
Now, friends, before we see the show, I take you behind the scene for a few moments.
The idea of the restaurant was abandoned, and it was now made into about a 15-minute show. And he brought the people back in and said, okay, what do you think of it now that it's a show? And they said, we still don't know what it is. Nothing like this has ever been seen before. So he brought in Dick and Robert Sherman.
So Bob and Dick came in and wrote in the Tiki Room.
What is the Tiki Room? It's a place where all the birds sing words and the flowers bloom in the Tiki Room. And that opens the show.
What about you, Jose? You got anything to say?
Hasta la vista.
That's right, hasta la vista.
We had the opportunity to work with George Lucas on Indiana Jones, and we were able to take the basis of that story and use it for a moving simulator and take you on a ride through Indiana Jones Adventures.
I think nothing beats what we call our enhanced motion vehicle, and it can literally react to all these incoming special effects. So imagine if you're in a world like that and a giant snake comes out to you and the car recoils in horror. We had to mock that up. Well, the darn thing was so much fun, and that was the launching for bringing to life this Indiana Jones experience where we had to create a ride vehicle that you never know what this thing's going to do. You're on edge the whole time because it's capable of doing anything.
Tony would spend all his spare time going to different attractions and figuring out how they worked and why and how people related to them.
And one of the things I pride myself in doing is whenever I'm out visiting anything that can be as amazing as a World's Fair or as simple as going to a high school play, I'm always looking at it in a backwards way. And I think Indy has a great example of that because our big finale came from a humble drive-through car wash. Now, you've probably all been in those things where you drive in and then you put it into neutral. And the first thing you do is look down because it gives your brain the effect that the car is drifting through the machine. And I wrote that down. I said, we got to use this. Well, at the end of the ride, we knew we couldn't have people go rushing towards a raging boulder. So we let the brain do the trick. And we moved the entire room just like the car wash while Indy's yelling, back up, back up. If you didn't have it in your brain automatically, Indy has planted it in there with that word, and everybody believes fully that we're engaged in backing up at that point. And what we're doing is we're just kind of creeping you forward. And at the last minute, we just drop you down, and that's the end of the ride.